Hi friends! If you click to check out an overview comparison video taking a look at the Chikuhodo, Kazan, and Z series brushes, then please keep on watching. Hi, I'm Alicia. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinkysweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I am a fitness professional who loves things all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeups, you can head over to my Instagram. A huge thank you to Fude Beauty for sending me some additional brushes from the Kazan and Z series line. This video is by no means sponsored. It's a collaborative effort, friends, in presenting you the information for these very expensive brushes. And Fude Beauty is so kind to send me these brushes so we could go over the details and the info. I am not, however, the only one that loves Fude. Fluffy Fude has a YouTube channel also, and she goes into great detail for a lot of the Chikuhodo lines. Our girl Tina from the Fancy Face also dives deep into the Fude all day. And Sonia G also said that she'll be starting her YouTube channel soon. So we will be swimming in a sea of Fude resource. Okay, today I wanted to dive a little deeper into the Kazan and Z series from Chikuhodo. I do have videos talking about some powder brushes from Chikuhodo and cheek brushes from those lines, and in my most recent live video when we went over holiday deals, I went over the Fude Beauty shipping cost that has been lowered for the holiday. So instead of $30 under a purchase total of $300, you could get delivery for $20. I know that's still a lot of money. The express shipping is the only option available for Fude, and therefore that is why it is so expensive. They're also running their Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. I don't know by the time I upload this video if it will still be going on. Make sure you sign up to their newsletter and do make sure you create an account because it all has to do with the points. I will leave all those details down below. If you've been thinking about either the Z series or the Kazan series, because a lot of people go back and forth, they're like, which one, Alicia, which one? Hands down, from using both these lines extensively, this is really hard for me to say, the Kazan series is my favorite. Hear me out though. That does not mean, however, that the Z series brushes are not exquisite. They most definitely are. I think you just have to find where you live on the spectrum in terms of softness, in terms of brush design. I do feel that the Kazan series is all about the face brushes, whereas the Z series, they have the blender brush, the shader brush, and the pencil brush. I only have 2 out of the 3 eye brushes that are included in the Kazan series set. The number 7 is the smaller shader brush where I have the KZ6, which is the larger. I'm a dirty liar. And I actually do have the KZ7. I just failed to locate it when filming the video, but I wanted to show you side-by-side comparisons, the KZ7 to the KZ6. In comparison to Chikuhodo Z Series 5 brush, I'll go into more detail about the differences between these specific shapes, but I wanted to show you that the Z Series has the Z11 brush, which is your more traditional blender brush that the Kazan series does not have. It does still have the pencil brush that I'll compare to the Z Series 1 also, but I do feel the Kazan series is an edited set, whereas the Z series has the fluffy eyeshadow brush as well as an eyebrow brush. Hold on one second. An eyebrow brush, a lip brush. That's what it was. So if you wanted to get the whole Z series and you weren't looking to use a lip or eyebrow brush, I do feel the Kazan series is more edited, where it is more face brush heavy and you just have the 3 eyeshadow brushes. But maybe you want the Z11, so you'll get that individually, or you get one of the sets offered on Fude Beauty from the Z series. Let's start with the powder brushes because I know y'all are like wondering, Alicia, KZ1, Z1, or Z9? The Holy Trinity. KZ1, Z9, and the beloved, I say beloved because I've been eyeing the Z1 for a very long time before I finally purchased it, I think sometime last year. These are all exquisite. Now, what I will say, based on the information that's not only on Fude Beauty but on Chikuhodo's site as well, the Kazan squirrel hair is a very rare hair, and it is indeed softer than blue squirrel, which is the hair that makes the Z series brushes. And you must be like, what? It's incredible. After using the Z9 for as long as I have, when you use the Kazan brushes, you're like, I did not know there was a softer hair than blue squirrel specifically. It definitely is softer, but does that mean less pickup? Not necessarily. I think that is the advantage Kazan has over Blue Squirrel, and I could be wrong. Maybe Fluffy Fude, Tina, let me know. That the Kazan picks up a little more product while remaining really soft to the skin. Also softer than Chikuhodo goat hair. If you have particularly dry, sensitive skin, either the Kazan or the Blue Squirrel is going to be for you. However, if you like that really light veil of color, any of the Z series brushes are going to deliver that intensity in terms of it being very conservative. Whereas the Kazan brushes, they're not going to lay down so much product like a goat hair brush will, but a little more than the Blue Squirrel hair, but still just be so feather light soft. And it's incredible. I didn't think it could get softer than Blue Squirrel, but let me tell you. And I also prefer just this beautiful gradient on the Kazan hair. And again, this is in comparison to the Z9. You see, although they both have an oval ferrule, that the KZ1 is a little more round than the Z9. Z9 has more of a paddle shape and is slightly bigger than the KZ1. Comparing now the KZ1 to the Z1, Z1 is a smaller brush. You see that this is a round ferrule as opposed to the KZ1 that has a more oval ferrule. And it comes to a slight, not a taper, it domes out at the top of the brush. But it's such a unique shape that I feel is great for finishing, great for loose powder. I prefer the Z9 for bronzer over the Z1. I know, how dare I? You can still get away with a beautiful bronzer application with the Z1 brush. However, I do prefer an oval shape because I can get the product right on the edge of the brush and nudge that into the hollows of my cheeks, and it just beautifully seamless in application. If you want the softest of the softest, then the Kazan is going to be softer than the Z1 or the Z9. If you prefer the rounder shape of the Z1, great. If you prefer the wood handle on the Kazan, I mean, this is just beautifully exposed wood. Look at the gradient. And also it's etched in as opposed to this being, I believe, laser on. I don't know the process. I'm so sorry. I'm so stupid. The handle is flat on the bottom on the Kazan brush, whereas round on the Z. You're looking at a shiny black ferrule on the Kazan series with the wood handle, where you're looking at black shiny top to bottom from ferrule to handle. If you're not really worried about softness and you're worried about design in terms of you're leaning more towards the all black design or the black and brown design, then that will definitely play a factor in what you decide to do. If you're looking at the price, well, the KZ powder brush is $250. The Z1 is $163 and the Z9 is also $163. The Kazan is more expensive because of the Kazan squirrel fiber. It is more rare than Blue Squirrel. So if you're looking for like that experience of rare hair, super soft, beautiful product pickup, and just a beautifully designed brush, then go with the Kazan. Why don't we hop into some Suku? I didn't set my foundation yet. I don't technically need to. I have the Lancome Teint Idole. It's an ultra wear type of foundation. Technically you don't need powder, but I'm just powdering to feel this Kazan brush. But why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. The way it just moves on the skin, it's just unlike anything you will ever feel in your life. And just to see, this is the Z1. Incredible how softer the KZ feels. But let me just tell you something. The Z series Blue Squirrel hair is nothing to snub off at. This is still a very soft brush, and everything is about perspective, right? When I first tried the Z series brushes, I was like incredibly impressed, and still to this day, it's just beautifully constructed, the right type of density, and again, loose powder application, bronzer if you want a rounder brush design. I still love the slightly oval shape, especially. It's just, oh my goodness, you could press and roll, you can tap, you can swirl and twirl. The softness is just, and I have my fox hair brushes on standby, incredibly soft also. But there's a little bit of pushback from the fox hair brushes that I can't yet put into words unless you try it yourself, especially if you have both. It's very plush, incredibly soft, but there's just a silkiness and a glide I feel that doesn't exist in the fox hair. Not that that's bad, just comparing these two. I'm just telling you, we're already high caliber in terms of where we're starting with comparisons, friends. This has a little more pushback. It has a little more, okay, it's a little more of a worker brush in comparison to KZ brushes. I also wanted to introduce the notion, which one of you were so nice to point out, and I think it's important to do so, is that you don't necessarily need a powder brush. Unless you're collecting Fude and you have to edit your wish list, then technically you can buy a cheek brush that does all the tasks a big powder brush does. And those two will be the Kazan 02 to the Z Series 8 brush. I bought the Z Series 8 brush last year, and I had said this is an incredibly versatile brush. You could apply loose powder with it, bronzer, blush, highlighter. Same thing with the KZ2, loose powder, bronzer, blush, highlight, you're done. The difference, however, is that the KZ2 is bigger than the Z8, so you're gonna get a little more versatility from this brush, especially if you think the Z8 is a little too small for bronzer maybe. I do think you could get away with a beautiful bronzer application with this size brush, but as you can see, the KZ2 is smaller in comparison. They both have oval ferrules, but as you see, this one has more bristles, is bigger. Not so much it's more pinched, I think, because since it has more bristles and it's a longer strand, it's gonna have more flare out than the Z8. And the one down from the Z8 is the Z4 from the Z series. So here is the KZ2, Z8, Z4. Z4 can also be considered to have versatile tasks. I think it's a little small though. You could get away with the loose powder application. It will take you a little while. But you could get it done for sure, especially if it's with a beautifully moving powder like the Suku one. Definitely nice for contour and bronzer. Might be a little bit of a precise application, but you could get away with it. Perfect for blush as well as highlight. Maybe a little more ideal for highlight than both the KZ2 and the Z8 because it's just smaller. It's a smaller brush and it's gonna have a more precise placement of color there for highlights. Alicia from the future here. Hi. I failed to include a very important brush in the KZ series, and that is the 04 cheek brush. Although the Z8 is closer in size to the KZ4 is slightly smaller than the Z8, and you can also recognize that the Kazan brush is round because of its round ferrule. And here's the KZ2 side by side, the KZ4. You see the KZ4 is significantly smaller, and that the KZ2 is an oval ferrule, whereas the KZ4 is a round one. Even though this is significantly smaller, I would say you could get away with loose powder application as it has really beautiful spread. And because it is so soft, it could get the loose powder around the face fairly quickly despite its smaller size. Also because of the dome shape and the size of the brush head, very nice to place bronzer here in the hollows of the cheek, and you could also place some nice blush on the cheeks. If you wanted to see the KZ in action, I'm actually going to take Charlotte Zalling bronzer in tan. I rarely use tan because this is the shade that if I wanted like some, but I think because these bristles are so soft, it'll pick up the right amount and it's not going to pick up too much like a goat hair brush, but just look how beautifully that blends. And again, the shape of the brush, just so intuitive to use for bronzer. That's why I prefer an oval shape. You could just fit it right here into the hollows. I'm gonna hit the jawline also with the same bronzer. I mean, I'm bronze fast. It's a fast bronze, friends. And to take a look at the Z8, same bronzer here, same placement on the brush, and a beautifully shaped brush again for this task. Hitting the same areas of the face on this side. Incredible that there's something softer than the Z8. Now, I would say Blue Squirrel is your bet if you have dry sensitive skin, most definitely. Kazan will be your bet hands down if you have dry sensitive skin. If you want something softer than Blue Squirrel, most definitely, but you're not gonna sacrifice product pickup, because I know some of you might have noticed if you have both Blue Squirrel and goat hair, that goat hair is a little more of a work horsehair fiber. It's going to move that product around. It's going to pick up a whole lot more than Blue Squirrel and Kazan. So even though a brush is soft, it might not be ideal for certain powder products you wish to use it on. Maybe you want something a little more aggressive in terms of product pickup and blend, so that's when you will go with the goat hair. But when it's just so beautifully soft, and again, an advantage with Blue Squirrel and Kazan, even though we're trying to pick between the two, is that it will not move your foundation around at all. It's just gonna place the powder beautifully, move it in a way that leaves behind the most diffused finish. It's insane, insane. I do think it's helpful to use this brush with a formula like Charlotte, very silky, smooth, and lightweight. A more heavy duty powder formula, I think more appropriate to be used with a goat hair brush. That's just my experience, because this will only blend so much since it is so soft. But the Kazan, even though it's really soft, is gonna move that product around beautifully. There's a brush I didn't request from Fude Beauty for comparing it to the Z2. I thought perhaps I could compare it to the KZ03 because I thought their brush length was very similar. Is the KZ5 here is more of a pointed flat brush, where I think it's still slightly more different than the highlight brush from the Z series. So this is the pointed highlight brush, and this is the KZ3. So the Z2 is more pointed, as you see, and the KZ3 is just a bigger brush overall. And you see the taper starts very low. Now you could automatically see the Z2 will be perfect for under eye powder placement, ideal for highlight as it is designated highlight brush. You could get away with the loose powder placement under the eye, pressed powder also. I would say highlighter too, we could see both in action, but the KZ3 is significantly bigger. Maybe I should have requested the KZ2. It's okay. The KZ5, excuse me. Maybe the KZ5 would have been the same as the Z2 in terms of head size and hair length. I want to take Mama Pat's highlighter because why not? Right there next to me. Let's see the Z2. Because this is a very soft brush, it's not going to pick up a whole lot of product, but I just love how it lays it down just beautifully, very lightweight. If you feel like whatever highlighter you've encountered, you just get like this strike of highlight that looks artificial and it doesn't look skin-like in finish. The Z2, it's just effortless. Pointed brush head just fits beautifully here on the cheekbone, as well as above the brow and down the bridge of the nose. Now with the KZ3, with the pat highlight, I have to be a little more careful because this is a bigger brush. I don't want to get out of hand, but even so, I think it places it beautifully, that it doesn't look like it got out of hand. And even though this is a big brush, I feel like it just placed the highlighter perfectly. Now this is a little tight in the pan, and because this is a softer brush than the Blue Squirrel, you have to go in a couple of times to layer it. But even still though, I mean, that's just got a little more from the Z2 because I think it's a smaller brush and it gets it right there on the cheekbones. But I love that application. We could also use this brush to apply our bronzer. I'll apply it right here, nudge it into the hollows of the cheeks. If you wanted a more concentrated placement of bronzer, I could very much go in with tan again and use the Z2, for instance, this pointed highlighter tip, and just place it right here into the hollows, and that's really gonna punch up the intensity. I could do the same with the Z4. Right here, right into the hollows, and that places more color there. I'm taking medium 2, same Z series brush into just down the bridge of the nose. It's a soft enough brush that it's not gonna pick up a ton of product, but place it there perfectly. I feel like I gotta do these brows because they're looking a little nutty. Now the other brushes that are also soft, for instance, a dyed and undyed goat hair blend, or even actually a goat hair squirrel blend, also a combination that I highly favor. However, the Kazan will still be softer because it's going to be softer than both undyed goat hair as well as the squirrel. And because the Kazan and Z series lines are made of squirrel hair, different squirrel hair but still squirrel, you will only use these brushes with Powder. Do not use them with cream. You'll ruin them. Now for some blush. Oh my goodness me. We could use the KZ2. We could use the Z8. We could use even the Z1 or Z4 or the one we just looked at from Kazan, the KZ3. I love the KZ3, the Suku, for blush because I just love how it's shaped. Again, I feel the tapered design picks up the right amount of product. You could press and then you could also swirl. And again, just a perfect application. If you want to see, the Z2 is a very pointed brush, but you most certainly can get away with a blush application even though it is smaller than the KZ3. Quickly wanted to see the KZ2, I could pick up the same color and you could use it to maybe drape over the bronzer or use the blush as like your sculpt shade. And as I mentioned before, if you pick the cheek brush over a powder brush because it is cheaper, if you chose KZ2, you could use this brush to apply your loose powder and to buff out your cheek products. Now for the sake of saving time, I'm skipping eye primer. I wanted to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury. I know so much Charlotte in this video. Bella Sophia, as I had not had a chance to demo this in my Charlotte Tilbury haul video. I wanted to showcase the different eye brushes in comparison, of course, between KZ and Z. This is the KZ6, this is the Z5. You see the KZ6 is bigger, has more fluff. I prefer this brush over the Z5 because I feel the Z5 is limited in that it's a perfect one and done brush if you want to place one shade on the lid. You can blend the edges. I think you will get better blend from the KZ6 because it is fluffier. If you look here head on, it has more fluff than the Z5 and I feel will just lend a better blend experience. It'll be a little more smoother across the crease. The Z5 brush is like lid, lower lash line, and you're done. But the Z series has a Z11, which for me, this is the softest eye brush that I own. For blending, like it does not move the skin whatsoever. And taking a look at the Z10 in comparison to the KZ8, they both look very similar. They're both very pointed, but I do feel there's a little bit of more pushback from the Z10, whereas the KZ8, yes, has a little more flow. So if you want a more precise application of color, the Z10. If you wanted something a little softer, has a little more give than the KZ8. I like the KZ8 over the Z10 because again, this is a little stiff. I prefer a little more fluff to my pencil brushes because I like a hazy type of a lower lash line situation. If you wanted to see the KZ6 in action, I think Charlotte Tilbury's are like the perfect example shadow for like one and done shadows, especially if, for instance, we wanted to use what she calls the enhanced shade with the KZ6. I just start whipping that across the lid, and then once I get it on there, I turn the brush on its side and start to swirl and twirl it. And granted, this is why I like Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadows, because of the emolliency and the sheen they leave behind. They're pretty effortless to use, but look how easy it was to get that color buffed out on my lid. Mascara and you're done. As opposed to the Z5, let's take the same color. I'm gonna place it on my lid. I do feel it takes a little more to get it all over. And I think because the bristles are a little more tighter packed, you just have to spend a little more time blending out the edges. Now you saw I was able to do it, most definitely. I do think you get a faster blend from the KZ6 if you like to bring color up into your crease and to blend it out. If you have small hooded eyes, you could use the Z5 to pull that color across the crease and then up from there, and it will blend it out for sure. That probably is an advantage the Z5 has over the KZ6 because it is smaller. KZ6 is a bigger brush, but I do still feel because it is pinched, it's flat on both sides, you can get it into the small hooded crease area if you do have smaller eyes. Let's go in with the smoke shade. I'm sticking with the Z5. I'm placing that on the outer part of the lid. This is a great size. It fits right there on the outer lid. And again, I could turn it on its side. What is that? To get a little more smoke. Back to the KZ6. Same shade on this side, and in the same manner, I'll start to blend out the edges here in towards the crease. Z5, most definitely for lower lash line placement, taking the smoke shade on the outer part of the lower lash line. And look at that, look how that made that a nice little shoopy shoop. KZ6, right here. I think if you have smaller eyes, you will much prefer the KZ5. I like the KZ6 because of my bigger eye size and I can get the blend done fast, but I do recognize since it is a bigger brush, you're gonna have to have more control over its placement. KZ8, why not? I'm going in with the first enhanced shade. I'm like switching sides here, sorry. Enhanced shade here, and it's just such a smooth application. Just look how it beautifully glides. Imperative if you have very sensitive lower lash lines. Z10, I know I sabotaged myself. I think you can get a nice haze from this brush. It does feel like it has a little more pushback than the KZ8, but you could definitely make it happen. The prime shade, I'll stick with this side. Of course, using the pencil brush, I think optimal for inner corner anything, all right? Just look how it beautifully fits there, right there. Pulling it a little in under the lower lash line. Prime for the brow bone, darling. Just the point just fits beautifully here. Look at that. Right under the arch, baby. Same thing with now the KZ8. Inner corner, in and under the lower lash line. A little bit on the brow bone. If you wanted the final blend, you just take the brush on its side and go over everything, even here under the lash line. You could do the same thing with the Z5. You know, I'm gonna be super avant-garde and skip mascara. But before we do that, let's try one of these brushes with the pop shade, which I much rather use with my finger. I think these are meant to be used with the finger, but the Z5 is not too bad in picking some up. It's not a powerful placement of color. Let's go in with the KZ6. Same thing. I think it's a light dusting, but if I were to take my finger, I definitely pick up a lot more. So this formula, I think, just more fingertip application friendly. I hope those comparisons help and you've seen them in action again and just a little up close and personal. No matter which way you go, Chikuhodo brushes, Fude brushes in general will just deliver. I think now it all comes down to, again, the design, the color of the handle, the color of the ferrule, what brush head design you prefer over the other. Hands down, the Kazan series brushes are softer than the Z series brushes, but do remember that the Z series brushes are already very soft to begin with. So if you want like that silky, smooth, beyond comprehension softness, the Kazan Homare series most definitely. If you do decide to get a few of them, they do have a set, but because the set has a leather brush roll, it's going to be significantly more expensive than if you just get all the brushes or a few of them individually. Same thing with the Z series set. The Z series sets, I believe, have smaller bundles, so if you don't want all of them, you just maybe want 4 or 5, whereas the Kazan series only has the individual brushes and the big mama set. I'll put all those options down below. Let me know if you have any other questions in regards to the Z series and Kazan brushes, because I know, fam, these are really expensive, and take your time in deciding. This is an investment. This is not something that you just buy off a whim. You gotta think about it. The good news is that the Kazan and Z series brushes are all permanent. They're not limited edition, so don't feel like you have to make a hasty decision now. Some people save upwards to a year to finally buy these brushes, and when you decide to make the investment, they will last you a very long time. So don't feel like your money is going to waste if you decide to purchase either a Chikuhodo Z or Kazan Homare series brush. Again, let me know if you have any questions, fam. I'll see you down in the comments, and until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I'll see you on here again with another review, tutorial, Chikuhodo brush extravaganza, monthly favorites, or nightly live chit chat. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.